This segment of the Alice Stewart Show is brought to you by Arrow Plumbing. For all your household or business plumbing needs, call Arrow Plumbing at 1-866-PLUMBER or schedule an appointment online at arrowplumbing.net.
And we're back on the Alice Stewart Show, 7:35 on a beautiful sunny Tuesday morning. Joined in studio this hour with Steve Brawner. He is a syndicated columnist, independent journalist. You can see all of his work at independentarkansas.com. Steve, great to have you here.
Good morning, Alice. Thanks for having me.
This is the time of year as we get closer to the midterm elections. We've got a little over 90 days. We're going to see a lot of television ads. We're going to see a lot of radio ads. You're going to get a lot of stuff in the mail. You'll get phone calls. And are you surprised at this stage of the game, the amount of that we're already seeing?
I'm not surprised because we've been seeing this for about a year now.
Right.
I was surprised a year ago when we started seeing this. But there's so much money now in politics, and the stakes are so high. Control of the Senate really probably rests on Arkansas in the race between Representative Cotton and Senator Pryor. So, Arkansas is ground zero, and there's a lot of money in politics, and we're seeing a lot of it right now.
Absolutely. And another thing you see a lot of this time of year, leading into a midterm election or any election, a lot of polling data. And the folks over at Talk Business and Hendrix College have done a fantastic job with the latest series of polls. And last week we talked about the numbers in the Senate race and the governor's race and the congressional races. They put out a new series of polling data. This deals with, and these are key numbers, these are important numbers, the popularity, favorability of different candidates. And it's always interesting to see this because voters can think this is the smartest guy in the room on the economy. He can be the stealthiest guy on foreign policy. But at the end of the day, Steve, as you know, they got to like you. You got to be popular with them in order to get votes.
Well, you do, and the poll looked at really the big names: Governor Beebe, President Obama, actually Governor Huckabee, and Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see how Governor Mike Beebe is so likable and popular, and his numbers certainly reflect this. And these numbers don't surprise me at all. Governor Mike Beebe, the question asks straight up, do you have a favorable or unfavorable opinion of Mike Beebe? And 42% said favorable, 25 somewhat favorable, 16 neutral, 11 somewhat unfavorable, 4% very unfavorable, which that's surprising to me, and then 1% don't know. But for a sitting governor to have a 42% favorable rating, that's pretty good.
Yeah, actually 67.5 between the very favorable and the somewhat favorable.
True.
Especially after 7 years. I mean, he's almost done, and apparently he hasn't offended people.
Yeah.
So, except for 15.5% of the population, I don't know. Democrats across Arkansas, in fact, even the South, have got to be asking, how did Governor Beebe do this, and how can I do it too?
Right.
And how this poll is useful is that that Democrats can see exactly how the model, and you can bet that Mike Ross has been studying these polls for a long time and trying to figure out how do I become the third term of Mike Beebe, and that's why this poll is important.
Right, and a lot of it is he goes to a lot of these events and he shakes hands and talks to people and is really engaging, and a lot of that helps. That helps with these numbers. Another person on the poll was our former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee. The question, do you have a favorable or unfavorable opinion of Mike Huckabee? And the high numbers here too. Very favorable, 35, somewhat 22. So it's an overall 57% favorable for Governor Huckabee. 14 neutral, 12 somewhat unfavorable, 14 very unfavorable, 3 don't know. So we're looking at basically 57% favorable, 26 unfaves.
And really, he hasn't been around Arkansas that much for quite a while now. So, he had 8 years in office, actually more than 8 years in office. And
10.
That's right, 10 years in office. And somehow he didn't make a whole lot of enemies either, even though he could be, Governor Beebe is pretty careful in his words usually, although less so lately. I can tell you from interviewing him. But Governor Huckabee was prone to make some pronouncements sometimes, and yet he still remains very popular. So there's something in the mix too that works very well for him.
Right. Yeah. That Southern candidates that are successful tend to get the memo that you got to go out there and work the crowd. You got to go to the Pink Tomato Festival. You got to get in there and mix with the people. It's important. And then we have...
On the other hand,
let's look. We'll start off with Hillary Clinton, former First Lady of Arkansas, former First Lady of the U.S., very favorable, has 29%, somewhat favorable, 41%. And I'll be honest, that's a little higher than I thought. But that being said, neutral, 7%, somewhat unfavorable, 9%, very unfavorable, 40%. So, and 2% don't know. So with Hillary Clinton, we're looking at 41% faves, 49%, almost 50% unfaves.
Well, not just that, but Hillary Clinton is the opposite of a bell curve. She's I guess, I don't want to say dumbbell, but that's I really don't mean that. She's very intelligent, but that's the shape of the curve. The very unfavorable is 29%. The somewhat favorable is 12%. On the other side, only 9.5% are somewhat unfavorable, but 40% are very unfavorable. So she's very much a very polarizing figure. Very few in the middle. You either love her or hate her. And in Arkansas, she'll be a very polarizing figure.
Yeah, and these numbers are classic, exemplify that statement right there. And it'll be interesting to see as she moves forward what she does or can do. I see if she runs for president, I don't see her stepping foot in Arkansas. I see former President Bill Clinton coming here, but I think she will just fly over Arkansas.
Arkansas is pretty much a red state in presidential elections. I don't see any Democratic candidate coming here, at least for the time being.
Right.
So.
All right, and the next question dealing with President Barack Obama. This is interesting here. Very favorable, 18, somewhat favorable, 13. So the total faves of 31, 6 neutral, somewhat unfavorable, 9, very unfavorable, 62. So we're looking at, for the president, we're looking at 31 favorable, 62 unfaves.
Right, and like Hillary Clinton, very, very high on the varies. More than half of Arkansans have a very unfavorable opinion of President Obama, and he really, he is a specter that hangs over all of the races this year. So that those numbers are very important, and they pretty much. I mean, if you wonder why Asa Hutchinson has a lead and over Mike Ross, and why the Senate race is where it is and where the other races are where they are. This is a huge part of the reason why.
And what do you see looking at these numbers, specifically the president's numbers with these unfavorables? How do you see that trickling down into the Mark Pryor race, the U.S. Senate race, the congressional races, the governor's race? Do you see the fact that people have such a low favorability of the president? Does that trickle down into these other races in Arkansas?
I would say it's a waterfall.
Yeah.
More than trickling down. It is, Democrats in Arkansas must run against President Obama in order to try to differentiate themselves, and if they are unable to, they're going to be in trouble. Somehow, Mike Beebe did it, even though I've really never heard him say a whole lot bad about President Obama. He hasn't purposely run against him, but somehow Mike Beebe was able to differentiate himself, whereas Mike Ross, another centrist-type Democrat, has not been as successful, and neither have many of the other candidates as well.
Right. It'll be interesting. And Roby Brock, the editor-in-chief at Talk Business, summed it up with, in terms of these numbers, if you need further proof as to why Republicans and special interest groups have invested so heavily in trying to tie Arkansas Democrat political figures to President Obama, these numbers should make the strategy abundantly clear. I agree with that. Conversely, the numbers also explain why Mike Beebe and Mike Huckabee selectively reemerge in candidate endorsements in the state.
Yeah, you wonder, if Mike Beebe were younger, you wonder what he could do right now, even nationally. But he's nearing his 70s, so I guess his political career is coming to an end. Maybe But definitely he is the most popular politician in Arkansas.
Yeah, yes, and it will be interesting to see what he does. I see some golf in his future, a lot of golf. Anyway, interesting to see these numbers and the where they stand on confidence in handling the economy, confidence in foreign policy, confidence in dealing with health care. Those are all important factors in voting, but I've seen many focus groups, Franklin's dealing with people in the last presidential with Obama and Mitt Romney. It all boils down to, do you like them, or would you vote for them? Do you connect with them? Do you have a favorable opinion of them? And that is generally one of the key factors in getting folks to vote for these people.
That's right. And we've nationalized our elections to where even if you're running for a city council, your party identification matters.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we will take a break and we will look at your column you have just written on the third-party candidates and the impact they will have or could have in the U.S. Senate race. Critical in terms of chipping away at those who are in that race. This segment of the Alice Stewart Show brought to you by Arrow Plumbing. For all of your household or business plumbing needs, call Arrow Plumbing, 1-866-PLUMBER, or schedule an appointment online at arrowplumbing.net.